Greetings, I'm Thomas, and welcome back to Basilisk Key. In this episode, we'll be going over the bracers. So, brace yourself, because I think this is going to be a good episode. I designed these myself with the help of my friend Ed, and I think they'll turn out pretty well. So we got another package from Ed. This one contains the bracers. First thing I see in the box is patina powders. The labels seem to have worn off over time, but these are from a company called Manhattan Wardrobe Supply, and basically it's just colored powder in a little fabric bag. Take it out of the jar and you smack it on your costume to give powdery, non-permanent weathering, which is really great, especially for a convention. Plenty of paper here, which is always a good thing. Make sure there's nothing in it. Here, this is a whipcord launch tube for my right bracer. Here's the left bracer. What do you think of that? It's my own design. This will be available to the public in a while. Not immediately though, because it still needs a lot of work. Goes together without piano wire and without filament though, which is great. Got some other stuff. This is my whipcord dart, just a static prop. And that slots in there. And then this is a screw point for attaching to the bracer. And then that's just a little cover for that. We'll go on with magnets. We have some heat inserts so that I can screw the parts to the bracers. And then a couple of 1/4-inch acrylic tubes. I designed the bracer to use 1/2-inch acrylic tubes. And I thought that Ed had 1/2-inch acrylic tubes from way back when we were in college, but they were 1/4-inch, and I forgot that, and that is not on him whatsoever. I didn't even ask to make sure what size they were. I just assumed. Never assume, guys. Here we have some accessory plates for the bracer. So, left bracer is going to have a shield generator. That's what the acrylic tube was for. It was the center of the projected shield. And this is just a 3D printed nut for holding the laser cut acrylic shield in place. Eventually I'm going to light the shield, but I think for the purposes of this video and for the purposes of going to a convention this summer, I'm just going to keep it static, not lit up. Here's the right bracer. Take a look at the whipcord launcher real quick. So that goes on just like that. Super flush. Beautiful. Actually, I'm going to move the box out of the way. So there's a bracer. Now what I had wanted to do is put a little display here. This is sized for a unit that I found on Etsy called a Mandalorian. And he said inserts go in here. Just drop that on. Screw it in. Same with the whipcord launcher. And you got your little display here. Again, for sake of time, I think I'm just going to use this basic one for now. We'll revisit this in the future. But that's a nice little way to cover up the hole. There we have it. What do you think? This is something you haven't seen me do before. Heat set inserts. So basically these are little brass nuts with splines in them, and you heat them up with a soldering iron and put them in a printed hole. And in theory, the splines are supposed to melt into the plastic and lock the nut in place. The problem here is the holes I modeled were too big. So I'm going to have to pot those with epoxy. From here, the rest is just sanding and filling like you've seen before. I just want to make a quick public apology to my wife here. That bucket that I was using for water is an old OxyClean bucket that apparently she was using to scoop clean cat litter. And I took it and she didn't know where it was. So, sorry. Give you a very quick peek behind the curtain here. In order to keep the sound on this laser engraving time lapse, I recorded a 2.5 hour laser job, and that was 76 gigabytes of data. Yeah. So I crunched that down to a minute and 25 seconds and less than 2 gigabytes. So this is my shield, and this is my shield generator. Now, this is laser cut out of acrylic, like you saw in the last segment, but it was laser cut flat. Ended up having to heat form it in order to get it into that sort of parabola shape, and it didn't go so well. I'm not very experienced at it, so it is not the right shape. Basically, the way that this works is I've got these 8 gussets and a central tube that they go around, and those go in this collared nut, which itself screws onto a screw that has 8 slots in it, and that just clamps down and holds it in place. But first we need to assemble the shield, which means peeling off all the paper and putting it together with some weld bond. So yeah, assembling this with weld bond I mean, obviously it dissolves the acrylic a little bit, and I ended up with some pretty nasty messes on the front face of the shield. And being that it's not actually made out of projected energy force fields, I need to clean that up. But before I do that, the weld bond is strong, but it's not very strong, especially since the shield is warped a little bit. You can kind of hear the squeaking there. That means things are moving. So I have some UV cure resin. This is different to the stuff that I used back on making the Cuirass, but it uses the same UV lamp. And it should use the same UV glasses, but I couldn't find them. The green ones did work well though. Look at that glow. And some oozed out onto my work surface, and I need to clean that up. And I need to scrape off the excess, which makes more scratches. Yeah, I'm not super proud of this. But it's my first attempt making something like this, so I learned? I wish I had some finer grit sandpaper here. That was the 400 grit stuff. And we're going to put on some polishing compound. There's a heavier grit compound. You do a few passes of that to get all the scratches out. And then there's a finer grit compound, and you take out the heavy grit scratches. And then finally, there's a last cleaning pass. Alright, so that went pretty painlessly. I think I'm starting to get the hang of this whole sanding and filling and sanding and filling thing. There was one incident where one of these bottom pieces, might have been this one, I don't know, 50-50. One of them I was painting for the Beskar, because as we've discussed previously, throw down a layer of primer and then let that dry till tacky, buff it out and add some graphite powder. So I was painting for that and whoop, it flew out of my hand and landed on a very dirty concrete floor. So I had to wait an entire day, let the paint cure, wet sand it back, and I had to wait for my schedule to open up so I could paint it again. It was a mess. And honestly, the finish, especially on these bottom pieces, could be a little bit better. You can see a little bit of the 3D printing grain. But the tops look pretty good, I'd say. So, yeah, lessons learned, some bad. Well, don't get overzealous with your paint. I had a little bit of a run because I was getting carried away. I didn't want to wait another couple days to get this video out. Who am I kidding? Didn't want to wait another couple days to be able to finish making this video. So I just kept the run going until it ran all the way to the bottom. And you know, if you're not having it pointed out to you, it looks okay. That's it. It's not a complete failure. And then there's some bubbles here and there. By the time I have paint and weathering on this, you're not going to be able to tell. Even up close, you're going to have to look for it in order to see it. There's really not a whole lot that went wrong. Oh, the big one. I have to mention the big one. My tostada shell here. I think that my shield here looks really good for the most part. The concept is solid. And even though this is held together with a 3D printed nut and some tiny M3 screws held into plastic with heat set inserts in holes that are too big. That's another thing. The heat set insert holes will need to get bigger before this goes to you guys. Even with all that, it's wobbly because my tolerances aren't the tightest, but it's not coming off. I could troop around the convention all day and never worry about this falling off. Will I get caught on door jams? Probably. Is it heavy? Would you consider half a pound heavy? Probably not, but if you're carrying it for 12 hours, that's another story. But I'm not worried about it coming apart. That's the big thing. I'm not sure if I will wear it at the convention. It's a good piece, except for the fact that it's tostada shell wavy. But it's strong. Strong enough. Someday I will plumb this with lights so that there's a little bit of a glow to it, some LEDs. Unfortunately, I'm up against the wall with getting to the convention, and that's just not happening this time. When I do an update video in a year or so, we will have lights. Who knows? So another thing that turned out really great is my whipcord launcher. Obviously, this isn't functional, though I did go to the effort of making the dart removable. Hides one of our screws there. So that just slots right back in there. Nobody's any the wiser. But almost lost my other screw cover. I had to cover two screws. So this little magnet piece just pops right on there. I will eventually have a Mando pewter plate, like I discussed earlier in the video. Unfortunately, even though that plate turned out fine, I think it'll work great for what I intend. That's another thing. I'm up against the wall, don't have enough time. I could have bought a pre-made unit, but that's like $80 that I don't have right now because I spent all the money on filament and fabric. Not this, but you get what I'm saying. You want to see this on my arm? You should say so. Let's do it. This mechanism is just lovely. These are symmetrical. I don't know if the production model will be symmetrical, but I can't see why they wouldn't be. Makes modeling easier. They don't have a clamshell hinge. Most costume Mandalorian bracers on the market have a clamshell hinge that uses piano wire or armature wire or maybe even 3D printer filament as a hinge, and then some sort of clasp on the other side. Ed and I didn't want that. We don't like the look of having a hinge the whole way through. We want it to be a bit more seamless, and we thought magnets would be enough. Maybe some ball detents. Maybe some ball detents for extra registration. So let's see if it works. Bottom side on. The top side on. And right here, it's already holding itself together. Just one side. See, the clasps are not done. And then, just like that. This is not coming off my hand. I kind of want to see what it looks like with the glove. Give me a second. I couldn't find the right glove for the right bracer, so we'll just have to put the right bracer on the left. But that's okay, because like I said a minute ago, they are symmetrical. So we'll just put our hand plate on, like so. Maybe not positioned quite right, but it's good enough for this test. Put on the bottom shell. Situate our top shell and clamp my arm hairs in there. Ow. That's a little bit tight. Okay, gotta fix this. All right, there we go. It maybe hits a little bit. That's not fantastic. The paint's gonna wear, but it does fit. But I can live with that for a day, and it looks decent. I am very pleased with how the bracers turned out. We are approaching the end of this project. Now, next episode is going to be a little bit of a detour. There's something that didn't turn out quite the way I wanted it, and give you a couple guesses as to what that is. So, that should be another quick episode. And then there's the helmet, and then there's the painting, and that's it until I do an update video a year or so down the road. Thank you so much for joining me so far. Thank you for liking and commenting. Thank you for watching all the way to the end of the video. You are awesome. And without any further blathering on, good luck. Don't die. We're all counting.